Hello, I'm Mike DeMars with Friars.com, and joining me today is the 2000 NCAA men's cross-country champion, Keith Kelly. Also joining us are coaches from Providence College, Ray Tracy, Nick Jackson. Ray, first question's for you. Keith was on the Inside Friartown podcast last year, and he mentioned that Ray Tracy's greatest achievement was getting Keith Kelly to be a two-time academic All-American. What are your memories from Keith Kelly's career?
Oh, Keith Kelly's freshman year was a bit of a struggle academically. I will say that, but he woke up just in time. Let's put it that way, with the help of a lot of people, and stuff. And kind of after his freshman year, things took off, and Keith obviously was a fantastic student for the rest of his time at Providence College. I think you were up around the 3.5 towards the end there, Keith. So. Kind of that's another success story, and then people don't realize sometimes, like when people come from a different educational system like Keith was in Ireland to the US educational system, it can be difficult. And he managed, he struggled first semester, second semester maybe, but managed it and learned how to learn the new system and became a fantastic student after that.
And Nick, what were your memories of Keith?
Where do I start? I mean, I was fortunate enough I just started coaching that season. In fact, I had to wait to get my work visa. So I came onto the, as an assistant after the first couple of meets. So, it was just an amazing experience. Not only was Keith a great athlete, but the leadership, the way he brought everybody together. And I went on my first day, and I was in there with Ray, and Keith walked in with all the guys in between classes with a big bag of cookies and a coffee maker and coffee. And we sat down with the Athletics Weekly magazines and just started talking. It was an incredible experience for me to walk into.
And Keith, what are your memories from working with the coaching staff at Providence College?
Yeah, again, I could talk all day. But, it was Andy, obviously, and Ray for the first few years. And it wasn't an easy start for me. It was a challenge. I was injured and not doing well. I had some issues with like fatigue. So I redshirted, and that was a disaster because, everything was going pear-shaped from the very beginning. And, things were a little bit different in 1996. Ray and Andy shared an office with Carla Branch, I think, and maybe like women's field hockey. I'm not too sure. There was probably 5 coaches in an office or 6 coaches in an office. So it was just a different experience than it was later on. But as the years went by, and I matured a little bit and took on a more of a leadership role, then I developed a great relationship. I had a great relationship with Ray from day one, really. And I think that even though I was a troublesome freshman, Ray had some sort of faith in me that maybe I didn't have in myself. So it was great. I butted heads with Andy a little bit in the first year, and then I developed a really good friendship with Andy too. And by the end, when Nick came in, that was the perfect season. So we were, Nick came into a really good situation and brought just a different energy. We love to talk about running. And we would talk for hours and hours, and we would debate running, and we would talk about, which is better, the Commonwealth Games or the European Championships, and, which is better, the history of Irish athletics or the history of New Zealand athletics. And we would quiz each other, and then we'd quiz Ray on like his knowledge. And it was just all about running. That's all we cared about. And I think that year, the coaching staff, I don't think Ray and Nick, could have possibly had a better year in terms of like, there was no trouble, no hassle, none of the kids in the team, we didn't do anything wrong. We were quite nerdy. We were really focused on running, and it was just a really pleasant and warm experience.
Well, let's get confirmation. Ray and Nick, was that an easy season for you guys?
I certainly would say so. To have a great team, you have to have great leaders, and that's what we had that year with Keith and Hamish, and stuff, and kind of they brought everybody else along, and stuff. So they made Keith and Hamish made our job very, very easy. Let's put it that way. And Nick, I don't think I kind of didn't understand until afterwards. I remember saying to Nick at one stage after the season was over and it went so well, I said, Nick, it's not like this all the time. Understand? It's not like this all the time. And so, but that was a special team, and Keith was a special athlete, still a special person, and stuff, and kind of, it wasn't all about, for Keith, it wasn't all about winning the national title for himself. It was by trying to win the team title as well. It was probably more important to him. We got close, and stuff. Keith got the national title, but we were third in the team that year, not that far behind first, and stuff. But that was a result of kind of the whole group being together, but being really dragged along by Keith, I would say, and stuff. So, to have, as Nick said, to have a great team, you have to have great leaders, and kind of, sometimes you're fortunate enough to have those leaders, sometimes you don't, Well, we had that year, and that's why the team was so successful, and Keith was so successful as well.
Keith, take us back to that 2000 season. Before the season, what were your goals? Were you thinking a team national championship and potentially a individual national champion that year?
Yeah, it started, in indoor national championships. I was last place in Arkansas in March of 2000, and I don't know why I ran really poorly, and I had a fairly weak mind that if I was having a bad day, I would kind of like make up excuses and almost like sabotage myself. And that was just one of those instances, and I was last place, and it was very embarrassing. And we were going to the airport, and Ray said, if you don't want to have that feeling again, you gotta have a goal, and you gotta start training now for the national cross country championships, which would have been 7 months later. And so I redshirted the outdoor season that year, and I got in pretty good shape, and kind of just rolled into the summer. And I had no goals per se, other than I thought I could do better than I'd done the previous year, which was 9th place in Indiana. And I knew I had an outside shot of winning. There was a couple of really, really good runners. There was the guy who won in Indiana in '99. His name was David Kamani, and he was brilliant. I mean, he dominated he was a freshman at Alabama, and he dominated in Indiana. And he was going to be really tough to beat. He'd run like 13:12, I think, or 13:16 for 5K, which is not uncommon now, but in 2000 it was very uncommon. And so he was a class apart. And then there was a few other really, really good runners from Arkansas and from Colorado and Stanford. So I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but it was very quickly that summer that things changed in my mindset, because we were very close. We were best friends on the team, and my closest friends on the team, Paul Riley and Hamish Thorpe, they said they were going to stay in Providence for the whole summer, and I was going to stay for the whole summer. And so the three of us basically camped out and took summer school classes and all lived together and worked in the mailroom, and we ran to Lincoln Woods every morning at 6 a.m. It was this was stuff that like we never had done before. This was really dedicated to, and I said to those guys, well, we need to get everyone back. So we got DG, Dermot Galvin came back early. Adam Sutton came back for the second session of summer school. So our top 5 essentially was training together from July. And I just said to those guys, I was like, listen, this is my last chance. And we have a good team. And if we just train really hard, we can actually probably, we could turn some heads here. And they were completely bought in. And we all agreed, no drinking, no going out. We would just have fun and just be totally into what were collective goal. So that summer we were doing, like I said, Ray's training is fairly basic. It's get fit every day. You just keep doing enough work each day that you're fitter than you were the day before. So we were just doing 10-mile morning runs in Lincoln Woods. We were doing 5 or 6 mile afternoon runs, and we were doing like tempo runs in Lincoln Woods. So we did a ton of stuff there. And by the time September rolled around, we were all in the best shape of our life, the whole lot of us. And when we went and did the first meet up in New Hampshire, which isn't a very tough meet, you know, you could feel that this team was either we were peaked too early, which I didn't think so, or we were something special was going to happen. And then that's when we started to really believe that we could do something.
Ray, what's it like to have a group of your runners get together on their own and make that commitment to themselves to train throughout the whole summer? What's that say about the athletes you had, the runners you had at the school, and how does it make you feel as a coach to see them put in the extra effort like that?
Well, most runners that want to be good have to do that. You know, stuff. Ours is a 12 months of a year sport. You know, stuff between cross country, indoor and outdoor track, and in the summer getting ready for cross country again. So the people that want to do well in our sport, you know, realize really quickly that they have to do this. They have to do this, but not everybody does it, obviously. You know, and stuff. So you're trying to build a team, you know, that focus on something like that during the summer and come in as ready as this group of guys were, you know, and stuff. And then you hope that everything goes well from that point on. Like, you know, just because you do the work over the summer doesn't mean that, you know, things are still going to be going well in November. You know, you can do so much work over the summer that by the time September comes around, you're tired of training, you know, and stuff. So, but this group stayed focused on their goal. They never veered away from it. You know, they stayed on message. And I think, you know, kind of they were strong enough leaders on the team to keep everybody on message, you know, and stuff, because they live together, you know, and stuff. I and Nick could only be with them an hour or two a day, you know, and stuff for practice and stuff like that. But the other 22 hours are just as important. And, you need those leaders to make sure those other 22 hours are well taken care of with sleep, rest, study. And this group did it, you know, and stuff. And kind of they got the rewards at the end, which is fantastic. You know, you always hope that, you know, when you do put in that kind of effort, you get the rewards. But, like, you know, just working hard is not the only thing. You still have to believe in yourself, and this group did.
What are you thinking about as the coach of the team? What are you thinking about going into that championship?
I'm definitely thinking that Keith can win the race. I had an outside hope that our men's team could win as well. It was going to be very close between ourselves and Arkansas, and I think it was Colorado. But you know, kind of, I don't think we could have gotten any more out of day as it was, you know, and stuff. We had three All-Americans, and our other two athletes ran really well as also in the top 60 in the race. So we got as much as we were going to get out of it. We were just beaten by two better teams on the day. But everything as the season went along, you know, kind of pointed towards, you know, a great meet for us. And, you know, I wasn't surprised that we were in the hunt and that we had a chance to win it. You know, we had run really well at the Big East meet, you know, and stuff. We win one. Keith and Hamish Thorpe win first 1 and 2 in every race during the season, right up to the NCAA meet, you know, and stuff. So, you know, with a great 1-2 punch, and the other guys were mixing. Adam, Dermot, and Paul were mixing it up, you know, and different number 3 or different number 4 every time, you know, but all very, very close to the top of the field. But you know, kind of, we were just beaten by better teams on the day. But you know, Keith wasn't a surprise for me. I thought after the way he ran at the regional meet the week before, I would probably say that the week before a regional meet was the best I ever saw Keith Kelly run. On the hills of Van Cortlandt Park. I was a little bit, the only fear I had was that was a little bit too fast, a little bit too much. It took maybe too much out of him, you know, and stuff. And obviously it didn't, but, you know, that was his peak, I would say, you know, and stuff. And he obviously held it for the following week. But that day was just phenomenal in terms of an individual performance by somebody at Van Cortlandt Park. I thought anyway. I've never seen anything like it in my 37 years of coaching, and I don't think I ever will again.
Nick, what do you say to a team that's going to the Nationals looking to be in contention for the national championship? What's your message as a coach to the runners?
really just to follow up on what was done the week before at the regional meet. Stay relaxed and calm, and it was. It was actually quite nice being underdogs as well. I remember at the banquet a couple of nights before, and everybody was talking about George Torres and David Kamani and Stephen Ondieki and Luke Watson and Jonathan Riley. Nobody was talking about Keith Kelly. And I remember Ray saying afterwards that at the meeting when we met with the team afterwards, he said to me, I like that nobody's talking about Keith. But at the regional meet, like Ray was saying, that was one of the most dominant individual performances I think I've ever seen in the sport of track and field and cross country. I mean, when we were on the course watching, when Keith would just go past and he'd wink and he'd smile, and it was effortless. It was a display of dominance that, like Ray said, that in all my years of watching the sport, I haven't seen it. So we knew what he was capable of when he stepped on the line at Iowa State that day, but a lot of other people weren't talking about him, and that was great.
Keith, what are your memories from that regional meet?
Yeah, that was the best race I've ever run, better than the national championships. I think if the national championships were that day, I would have won the national championships by 20 or 30 seconds. It was my good friend Vinnie Mulvey, an Irish guy at Iona College. He was having a rough season, and he was a good runner, a good cross-country runner. And he decided, Mick Byrne, and he decided to make their regional meet like a really hard meet, a really hard race. So I just remember Vinny going off like a lunatic in Van Cortlandt for, the purpose of the regional meet is to control an effort to get yourself safely to nationals as a team and as individuals, but to make sure that you haven't emptied the tank. And Vinny went out so hard, and I just went with him. And I don't know if I ended up cracking Vinny mentally. We have talked about it since, but I felt like I was jogging, and Vinny was going max effort. And we got into the backwoods of Van Cortlandt Park, and we passed the 2 mile mark, and we were going quick. I mean, we were on course record pace, and I just was jogging. And then Vinny, kind of packed it in a little bit, and I ended up just having a huge lead. And I remember Ray yelling at me to slow down, and I was like, I can't run any slower. Like, once you get in that runner's high, it just feels effortless, and you don't feel any fatigue. And I really tried to slow down as much as I could over the last 2 miles. And then behind me, Hamish was second, and Suts was third, and DG and Ralzer made it round the top 10. So we ended up going to nationals with like a real dominant performance, but no one was talking about us. And I was like, we've either completely peaked, and we're going to like completely at nationals, or we're going to challenge for the win at nationals. And I think with the weather at nationals being so favorable to cold weather runners, there was something in the air about Ames that suits the Providence College crew 5 years before the women won. And there's something about that, like, tough, cold, windy climate that suits us. So when we got there, we were pretty confident that we were going to do well. But it was in the back of my mind that we had peaked, and that was it. We were going to fall apart because we felt so good the week before. But the nationals, the regional meet was one thing, but the whole season, and I don't know if it's in your questions, but every race we just kept getting better and better. Big East, we won the Big East title. We won the New England's title. There was a guy from the University of Connecticut, Dan Wilson. He was the only one that broke our top five, and so we almost clean swept New England's. We won the Roy Graic Invitational, which was a really, really tough meet out in Minnesota. So we were unbeaten, and when we got to nationals, for some reason, no one was talking about Providence College, and it was like we were this ragtag group of guys. We, as Nick said, we had to go to Walmart the night before to buy some polypropylene long sleeves and some mismatched gloves because it was so cold and we weren't prepared. And that wasn't because of the coaches or anything. It was just freaky cold, and we just, we didn't have the support that the likes of Arkansas and Colorado and Stanford had, where, you know, they were big schools with big all school deals with Nike or Reebok. We were a little bit more ragtag. And so yeah, but coming out from the regional meet, we were pretty confident, and we were pretty happy heading to nationals. We were in a good zone.
Ray, take us to that day in Ames, Iowa. 5 years previous, the women's team had won the national championship. What do you remember from that specific day?
It was cold as well. You know, and people have asked me which was the colder day. It's hard to tell. It was very windy the day that Keith won. You know, it wasn't as windy that day. It was probably colder in 1995 when the women won, but there was a sweeping wind across the course and Ames that and the day Keith won. There were times when they ran into the wind and everybody was trying to get protection behind one another and stuff like that. It was just a really, really hard day. But, you know, I think we had been successful in Iowa State before. I think that helped, that we had that in our psyche going in, like, you know, that we have been successful in Iowa State before, we can do it again. That did help, I think. We went in there with confidence that the weather was not going to affect us, you know, and stuff. And we were as prepared as we could be, you know, and stuff. And kind of, I know we had, like, there was teams actually borrowing the olive oil from us at the start line, you know, and stuff. We had used it in 95 as well, you know, and stuff, and to keep the heat in and stuff. So, but we were prepared in our own way, you know, and stuff. And, you know, the guys didn't let anyone down that day, that's for sure.
Ray, where did you pick up the olive oil trick? Because that seems to be a common theme between these national championships now.
I think Andy Rowan was the one that he had used it in marathons during his marathon career, and he was very successful. He had used it in cold marathon days and stuff, and kind of had worked for him, you know, and stuff. So we used it then, you know, and stuff, and kind of, I think a lot more people use it now as well, you know, and stuff, because it allows the body to breathe, but you keep the heat in as well, which Vaseline doesn't.
And Nick, what do you remember from that day? Obviously a cold day in Ames, Iowa.
I remember Ray and I left very early in the morning to drop one van in a spot that was really suitable so we could get in and out because it was so cold. And I just remember talking with Ray, you know, really early in the morning before anybody was there. We dropped the van off, went back to the hotel, and, you know, just about the strategy for the day. And we were just feeling really good about it. Yeah, you know, and I'm going to say, I think we're talking about the weather, but Keith would have won that race if it was in Arizona. It doesn't matter where it was, based on what we saw the week before, where it wasn't, you know, it wasn't cold at all. It was feeling, you know, it wasn't warm, but it was mild. But that was his race. So I just want to say he's been humble on that one. So.
And Keith, your national championship, what do you remember from that day?
Yeah, I remember it very clearly, actually. You know, I get very emotional when I think about it, because it was really special time. And we went, it was freezing cold. Ray and Nick had planted a van right off the, you know, near the start line on the side road. So that was our hub, and we just had the heat turned up. It was really, really cold. But like Ray said, it was this just Midwest, you know, biting wind that was just ripping across. So we warmed up and we stayed on the side of the course. We just warmed up close to the van, but we warmed up in complete like winter coats. Everyone was warming up in winter coats, and we waited till the very, very last minute until we were called to you know, your box area before the race. We waited till the last minute. So we were in the van just waiting, and Nick and Ray were outside braving the conditions. And then when we got the call, you know, we went over to the start. We stripped down. I remember Ray with the big tub of olive oil just rubbing it over our legs and on our face and everywhere. And then other teams, coaches coming over, grabbing it and rubbing it on their athletes. And everyone was really, really cold. And, you know, we had such a strong team. I keep saying this, but we had such a friendship on our team that we went out, you do a couple of strides before the race, and then the teams get together at some point and you have a little huddle, and you do your 3-2-1 Providence. We got the group together, and it was just like we were all huddled, we were all shaking, but the shaking was a combination of being cold, but a combination of being like so nervous and apprehensive that something special was going to happen. We were choked up. I remember talking to Paul Riley about it. Like we were like really all teary-eyed with each other, because we were like, this is it. This is the last time we're going to be together as a cross-country team, and we have to do this. And I gave a bit of a speech, and I can't specifically remember what I said, but it was along the lines of, I love you guys, you're my brothers, and no one would pick us to be here, but let's win this, and let's go back to Providence as national champions. And we did a really loud 3-2-1 Friars, and I think at that point everyone just kind of lit up, and the start was Into the Wind, and we just were all up at the very front. And when the wind was blowing, and we ran really slow for the first mile. It was like a 5-minute mile, because it was into this block headwind and no one wanted to lead. And we were just all down. I looked over my shoulder, and Hamish and Paul Riley were right next to me. And I was like, holy shit, we're going to really do something here today. And I remember the whole race unfolding, exactly how it did. It would go from 5-minute mile pace to 4:20 mile pace based on the wind. And we stayed together as a pretty big group. Hamish and I were both in the lead pack. Paul, DG, and Suts were in the second pack, but DG managed to pick off a lot of people later on and get himself an All-American. Near the end, with about 2 miles to go, David Kamani and Stephen Ondieki, they started sprinting. We had a bit of a tailwind, and they started sprinting flat out. And I was like, I can't go with that. I don't know what they're doing. Either they're going to run to the finish, or they're going to die. Thankfully, it was the latter. And then I just stayed with Franklin Sanchez and George Torres, and we kind of came into the wind. I kind of sat a little bit behind them, knowing I could do a fast finish. And the last 400 meters or so was it with a tailwind, so it was really fast, and it was maybe a slight downhill. And Ray kind of yelled at me about seeing a 55-second last quarter, and once I got the tailwind, I just sprinted with my eyes closed as fast as I could. And when I looked up, I was leading, basically. I passed them all. And then by that stage, with about 100 meters to go, it was all wrapped up, and got the win. And then immediately turned around to see where the team was, because I literally was more concerned about that. And I saw Hamish come across in 11th. And I was like, wow. And then DG ripping down and beating Jonathan Riley and a few others. And I was like, we've 3 in. Arkansas has 3 in. No one else has 3 in. So I was like, we're tied right now for the win. But like Ray said, Arkansas and Colorado are bigger programs than ours, and they had deeper teams. And Suts and Ralzer came in around the 60s. And I thought there was a chance that we might have been second. We were really, really close to second. Colorado beat us by a few points, but Arkansas were definitely more dominant. They had ended up having 5 guys come in under, I think all 5 guys in under 30, or under 40. So I just remember, and the women's Providence team did solid that day as well. I think they were 10th. So there was a good energy around both squads. And I just remember being on the podium and, getting the 3rd place trophy and lifting the trophy with Hamish and Nick and Ray on the podium with us. And that was the best part of it, the team. And Hamish, if I wasn't around, I said this when we did the Athlete of the Year awards, if I wasn't around, Hamish would have been a Big East champion, a New England champion. He would have been a regional meet champion, and he would have been 10th at nationals. So he would have had one of the more successful cross-country seasons in the history of Providence. But he never had any jealousy towards me, or never had any. He was so psyched to be like the guy that was behind me, because he felt the pressure was on me and he could just do his thing. So when we lifted the trophy, and I think him knowing that his 11th place was such a major contributor to us getting on the podium, like that was his national championship as well, and same with Dermot getting in the All-American. So it was it was a spectacular day. We were freezing cold, and we were very, very happy.
Ray, talk about what type of runner that wins a national championship, turns around, and his first thought is, where are my teammates? How well is this team going to do? Talk about the type of athlete that is.
That's Keith Kelly, true and true. And stuff. There's not many people like that out there. That's why he'll always be considered a special athlete at Providence College. This is just something that, that he was admired for at Providence College. I don't think I've ever heard anyone at Providence College say a negative thing about Keith Kelly. And that's a hard thing to say, and stuff. Everyone he came in contact with at Providence College loved him, and stuff. They got to know him, and stuff. And as soon as they got to know him, he was their friend, and stuff. And that wasn't just the students, it was the faculty, it was the Dominican friars, it was everybody, and stuff. And he left a legacy at Providence College that'll be hard to follow. There's no doubt about that.
Nick, what were your thoughts on working with Keith and the fact that he was such a team player the whole time and wanted his teammates to do just as well?
I think it just made life easy. There are tons of programs with many great athletes, and there've been a lot of great athletes at Providence College. I think the difference, again, from say when I was running there, and what Keith, what we saw with Keith was the ability for the number one athlete to also be your leader. And lots of teams have a kind of somebody with leadership roles but for the national champion to be the one who motivates, the one who brings everybody together, was just a unique thing.
Keith, what did your time at Providence College mean for you in your running career, in your life, and what did you learn from your coaches and teammates?
Well, I'm still very, very close with my teammates. Hamish gave up running not long after he left, and he has recently found running again, and he came over and ran the New York City Marathon, and he stayed with me in Boston, and we drove to New York together, and I got him in, I work with New Balance now and we're sponsored, so I got him a number and got him on the bus, and I was at the finish line waiting for Hamish, and it was like same old thing, no different. We were just 18 years older, 19 years older, and less hair on our heads, and but we connected, and Hamish ended up coming to the London Marathon as well, and he flew to London and I was over in London, so we were over in London together. So nothing's really changed from my relationship with those guys, other than we're a little bit older, but we all stay in touch. Obviously, Paul's wife is a coach at Providence, and he's very involved. But Hamish is back in New Zealand, and DG's back in Ireland, and Suts and Livesey are back in the UK. Larry's back in Ireland, and Kieran is still in the US. But we're all still tight. But to answer your question, it's a lot to unpack, because I think there's a very narrow focus on success of running when you go to when you run for a university or a college, and you're measured on how you perform, and you're considered a failure if you didn't make the next level or become an Olympian. And Ray's had to deal with this begrudgery, especially from people in Ireland and people in the UK, or that like athletes have shown lots of promise and gone to the US and they never amounted to anything. But that's all based on this very narrow focus of running, where very few people make a living from running. Only 3 people can go to an Olympic Games. So like many of the greatest runners don't even get to go to Olympic Games. Success is what comes in your life. And I look at, for myself, I wouldn't change anything. If I had to do it all again, I would try and not get injured. After college, I was in a constant pain, and you know, I would maybe have made some tweaks to my lifestyle post college, but my time during college, everything happened for a reason. I never got burnt out by the end. By the end, I was so motivated because I realized that I had only 1 year left, and it goes by really fast. And I tell that to all the people who run in college, that your 4 years or your 5 years goes by in a blink of an eye, and you will have regrets unless you know you've given it all. And so I gave it my all my last year, and to have 1 year to be so successful, you know, indoor was successful. I didn't have a successful outdoor national championships, but that is what it is. The year was so successful that I don't look at any of the negative parts of my earlier years at Providence. It was what it was, but my relationships through Providence have gotten me to where I am today as a 43-year-old. I work with a former Providence College athlete and a Hall of Famer, and someone who was maybe a paid coach or a volunteer coach, John Evans at New Balance. My boss's boss, his 2 kids just went through Providence. So there's huge connections to Providence College, and my success at Providence opened the door for me in other parts of life, where I got to meet people in the running business side, and now I work in the running business. And you know, I'm not someone who banged his head against a wall for years trying to make a living as a runner and then had nothing. Like my relationships at Providence opened up a lot of doors for me outside of running. So my experience was incredible. And, you know, I look at the team now, and I'm still as psyched as ever to see them do well. I know it's a different time, and I know the level of competition has gotten more intense and faster and more professional, and there's a lot more distractions now for kids. So it's probably a tougher coaching job now than it was back in 2000. But I look at my time really fondly, and I'm really proud of Providence, and really proud of the uniform and everything it stands for, and everything Ray's built there, and the fact that he's overcome some tough teams, some, you know, great teams. He's had trouble students, he's had, you know, good students. He's seen it all, and I think our time, I'm really proud that, you know, we were able to give Ray, and Nick obviously as well, but to give Ray a season where it was just happy, and it was just pain free, and it was just negative energy free, and we could banter and drink coffee and talk about running and geek out on running in the office all day between classes. And it was just, looking back on it, that was a really special thing for me, that, you know, I just know that it was enjoyable for everyone, not just for me. So that's a very long answer, Michael, but I loved my time at PC, and I wouldn't change anything, because, you know, that last year was so special that, you know, everything that comes before it's irrelevant, and it built up to that year.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for taking the time today to help celebrate Keith Kelly's 20th anniversary of the NCAA Men's Cross Country Championship. Keith, Nick, we hope to see you in Friartown soon.